You're listening to
The Lights Out Lounge podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Lights Out Lounge podcast. I am one half of your hosts, Jayden. To my left is Brianna Ross, and today we have a very, very special guest. It is an honor and a privilege to announce on our podcast the man himself, former Formula One driver, David Coulthard, everybody.
Oh my gosh, welcome to the podcast, David.
Thank you. What an introduction. It's very kind.
So, at the time of recording, Dave, you are our first ever podcast guest. So, mate, you're in the history books.
Excellent. That's what we like. I like to try and be first at something because I spent a lot of my career finishing second.
All right, to ease into things, we're going to start it off with an easy question. When you hear Formula One today, what is the first feeling that comes to mind? What are you thinking of?
In terms of the noise, you mean, or?
In terms of being a former F1 driver, working inside Formula One to this day, how does being in the F1 environment make you feel?
Yeah, well, look, I've been online, I guess, like a lot of people, listening to the new engines that we'll have for this year. The Audi team have launched their car. Jonathan Wheatley, who's the team principal there, is a long-term friend of mine. We go way back to karting back in the 80s. So very, very proud of what he's done in his career, and it's an exciting time for Audi as a manufacturer coming into Formula One. And it sounds like it's a bit more throaty, a bit louder. I guess that's as a result of not having the MGUH. Got to get my terminology correct. So it's single turbo Formula One technology that we have. So curious to see how it will feel when I actually am with them first at track, which at the moment isn't meant to be until I'm in Australia. I'm not scheduled to do any of the pre-testing with the TV work that I do. But yeah, Formula One has been a fascination for me since I was a little boy, growing up, watching it with my dad. Waking up early to watch the Australian Grand Prix. I was in Adelaide recently, and that brought back memories of watching Mansell blow a tyre in his battle with Prost back in the 80s, and it brought back memories of me crashing out in the last Grand Prix there in 95. But look, Formula One has been a huge part of my life, and I guess like you guys and hundreds of millions of people around the world that aren't as lucky to get the chance to actually drive the cars. It's just a fascinating sport. It's a technology sport. It's a people sport on a much bigger scale than would be with a football team or many other team sports, where of course there's a big support crew. But in Formula One, you've got 1,000 people if it's let's say a medium-sized team, and much more in the big teams.
Yeah, there's a viral video going around of Audi's private test in Barcelona. I'm not sure if you've seen it. Some guy leaked some footage. I'm a bit torn, actually, as to how the engines sound. I'm not sure how to feel about them yet. Have you heard the engine? Do you have an opinion on it?
Well, same. I've just seen the same leaked video, which I suspect is probably a bit more, um, what do you call it? Is there really such a thing as a leak anymore? It's a good little bit of pre-media. Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't matter. Look, at the end of the day, we know they were first out on track. Well done to them. It's a new project. It's exciting, and yeah, I think it sounded a bit more throaty, but you need 20 of them, 22 of them, rattling down to the first corner of Melbourne or Bahrain or whatever race you're going to be at, and then we'll really understand where we are with this new technology.
Yeah, awesome. We've seen other drivers go on other podcasts speaking about their preparation prior to a Grand Prix. There are obviously like different methods for different drivers. I can remember Carlos Sainz, I'm going to use one of his quotes. He said that it is important to have a steady heart rate pre-race, not too low but not too high, sort of like right in that sweet spot. In terms of going back to your racing career and preparation for a race, what methods did you use to get into the element you needed to be in order to perform the best you can with the machinery around you?
Talking a long time ago now that I was racing in Formula One, but yeah, I always took my physical preparation seriously. I consider myself an athlete back in those days, and the way I trained, and I, because we don't suddenly just arrive in Formula One and become race drivers. We're racing since we're kids. So for me, that started at 11 years old. For Carlos, he would have started racing at 8, but he would have been like all of us driving little go-karts and motorbikes and stuff when we're in single digits. So I think we're pretty well prepared for what's about to happen. It's not like you're at school and you're about to do your first public address, your first speech in front of an auditorium. And of course, anyone would be nervous in that scenario. But when you've been doing it since you were a kid, then it's more routine. But I used to like to have a little nap before the Grand Prix, maybe an hour or so ahead, just a cat nap, 10 minutes just to sort of reset because there's a lot of nervous energy that goes into the entire weekend. The Grand Prix weekend starts on Thursday, essentially, with all the media work. Friday, you're on track. You're thinking about how to develop the car. What are we doing on setup? Then you're committed to qualifying on Saturday, which is obviously a big adrenaline peak. The fastest you'll go all weekend is in qualifying. And by the definition of qualifying, it's a journey to the unknown. You've never done that lap time before. So the first time you do the fastest lap, it's the first time. And then Sunday, the build up, strategy, maybe some partner sponsor work. So there's always something happening. So I think most of the drivers probably like to get a little bit of quiet time just to get some food on board as well. I would always have a big breakfast because I found it difficult to eat a lot once I was at the track because you're taking on a lot of fluid, hydrating for the races. And then you have a sort of routine of getting to the garage, talking with your engineer, checking out the car, chatting to your mechanics, and then the um, laps to the grid is the first time to kind of feel the car on that day because you've qualified it on the Saturday. Sunday, the track is always changing. And then, yeah, you're getting ready for that magical moment when the team walk away, leave you on the grid. You get a little high five from your mechanics, and it's down to you to try and react to the lights and go off and have a great Grand Prix. So it's a privilege. It's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of adrenaline, but I would be surprised if any of the drivers are very, very like, oh my God, because if they are, then you've got to wonder what's gone wrong in the preparation. So, I think they're professional, so they're chilled, and some people will have a snack on the grid before the race starts. I was never someone to eat something just before
Yeah.
getting in the car. I'd be more drinking, sort
Yeah.
of guess nervous energy of taking fluid on because I was taller than a lot of the drivers and on the limit on weight, so I couldn't very often have a drink system in the car. So, in the very hot races like Singapore or Malaysia, I would take some chewing gum. Um, but I would chew on that to keep my mouth hydrate. It just triggers that sort of saliva.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the longest Grand Prix is 2 hours. So yes, it's tough, but it's 2 hours. You're not doing an ultra marathon. You're not walking to the North Pole or South Pole or whatever. Most Grand Prix are 80 minutes, 90 minutes long. And if you cannot train and make sure you've got enough fuel on board to manage to do that, then you're probably either unlucky on that day because you've been ill, or you're just probably not, trained hard enough to make sure you can do that.
Yeah, wow, that's super interesting, especially about the chewing gum. Like, I feel like
Wow.
that stood out to me the most, especially like how hot is Singapore? You've been,
Very hot.
I'm going,
Very hot.
and I can't imagine like having to watch how much you drink
Oh,
because, especially like you said, being a taller driver. Yeah, wow.
yeah.
Talking about racing moments like we just have, is there a moment in your career that stands out the most to you? It doesn't necessarily have to be a moment on the track.
Well, growing up through karting, I would give myself, I had a little book and I'd give myself marks out of 10 in my performance. And sometimes I'd win a kart race, and whatever you're doing is the most important thing. So if I was doing Scottish karting, that was the most important. If I was doing British, that was so to try and win the British Championship was obviously the goal, and I managed to do that back to back. And I would give myself, say, marks out of 10. And sometimes I'd win a race and I'd give myself 6 out of 10 because I hadn't particularly performed at what I thought was my best. And sometimes I'd finish fourth and give myself 8 or 9 out of 10 because I thought I got the most out of the situation. You don't always have the right tires or the right cart or the whatever it happens to be. I never gave myself 10 out of 10 because I always felt there was room for improvement, even if I'd won, 3 heats in the final.
Yep.
And I didn't sort of physically keep a record when I went to Formula One, but mentally the same. And therefore, I think Magny-Cours, the French Grand Prix 2000, which is the race where I woke up. I used to stay in a motorhome at the track. I was on my rowing machine in the morning. I was convinced I was going to win the Grand Prix. I think I qualified second to Schumacher, but I was just so confident. And I battled with Michael and then gave him the finger when he cut me up and had to overtake Rubens, his teammate, and go on to win the Grand Prix. So it stands out for me as just an absolute belief that I was meant to win that Grand Prix. And of course, there's a lot of things can happen. You can make a mistake, the car can blow up, the reliability wasn't as good back in those days as we now have. But it just felt like a complete Grand Prix
Yep.
of battling and coming through and winning. So yeah, that stands out in my memory as a pretty good race.
You know what? I remember my dad telling me about that. Me and my dad were watching a session. I can't remember which track it was, but Danny Rick put the finger up at someone. And then he's like, "Oh, that reminded me of when David Coulthard did this back in the day." And I found it absolutely hilarious.
That is so funny.
Yeah. And how small the world is. Now we've got the man himself telling us that story.
Well, that's elite.
Crazy. So we've now touched on your racing career. So now you are working in Formula One in commentary, working for the Formula One company themselves. Was it harder to break into F1 or step away from it?
It's got to be harder to get in than to come out. There's hundreds of racers that are talented enough to be in Formula One, maybe thousands. It's not for me to sort of define the numbers, but I've certainly raced against guys in karting or in cars that were incredibly talented, but weren't in the right place at the right time, and therefore they didn't get the opportunity. So I'm very appreciative of the journey I got with Paul Stewart Racing into being the test driver at Williams. None of us could have predicted, or certainly no one would ever have wanted, the fatalities of Imola with Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna, which then led to me getting my full-time, or no, it wasn't even full-time. I shared the car with Mansell in 94, and
Yep.
then I got my full-time contract 95. So by the time 2008 came, I knew it was time. I'd been given great opportunities. I'd driven for McLaren for 9 seasons. Red Bull was a great period of building the foundations of that team's future success. But it was quite clear, 37, I wasn't getting better. I wasn't a rookie, and it was time to stop. And it was, in my mind, better to stop when everybody is there feeling like it's the right time than being sort of, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep going, and then finding that you don't have a seat anymore. And that led to me signing to work with the BBC in that last season, 2008. So I went from my last race in Brazil, 2008, to, 3.5 months later, I'm in Melbourne with a microphone ready to work in broadcasting. And that's then led to this next career, which has been, nobody's doing anything for the first time. I wasn't the first person to give a driver a finger when I was pissed off in the car any more than Daniel was.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the first driver to stop racing Formula One and start broadcasting. James Hunt was someone that was on BBC when I was growing up doing the broadcasting, and he'd won the World Championship, what was 76, 77, I can't remember exactly, but that big battle with Niki Lauda.
Yeah.
So in many ways, history just keeps repeating itself, but it's led to whatever that is, a 20-year career in television. I'm one of the shareholders in Whisper, who produced the show for Channel 4. We do Formula E, we do tennis, soccer, you name it.
Yeah.
So, that's been great to get involved in a new business that has grown to the point where we're almost 300 employees from three original um, investors. So there's been a lot of excitement in this journey of life. And in answer to your question, yeah, easier to step away than to get in. Amazing. I know most people would think that you would want to stop, but nothing in life lasts forever. And
Yeah.
there's phases of your life. When you're at school, it's awesome because you've got, dreams, hopes, and very little responsibility. When you become a dad, you've still got dreams and hopes, but it shifts to your children. You want the best for them. You would give the meat off your plate to your kids, which when you're at school, you're not going to give the meat off your plate to your buddy, are you? Unless he's a really good friend. So there's phases of life that you don't know about until you know about them, and you shouldn't know about them until it becomes that moment. But as many older people will tell you, life's a journey, and some decisions you make are good ones, some are not, but that leads to other decisions, hopefully, that are better. And you just got to keep shaking the tree
Yeah.
as I say to my son, who's 17 and racing GB4, there's I don't know how many people out there in the world have got the same talent as you. There'll be a lot of them have the same opportunity. So the thing that will separate you from them is your work ethic.
Oh,
If you think about whatever it is you're trying to achieve every day, if you work towards that every day, if you visualize it, if you do that, and the other person just does it on the weekend, then in theory you should get better results because it's more part of your dream and your visual of what you're trying to achieve. I think a lot of people think that just because you want something and you talk about it passionately, you'll achieve it. Well, you've got to work towards it.
yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and like all of these big sports stars or big movie stars or big musicians, and I think musicians are a great example. How many of them do we see when you go back in their early career? They're standing singing in a pub to four people, and three of them are definitely not listening, but they're building up their experience. They're handling the rejection that comes in the early stages when people don't know you and you're not a star and you're working towards your goal. And it's a long, long road from karting to Formula One. Even if you were Max, who started in Formula One at 17, he started driving at what, 3, 4 years old. So, everyone tends to look at any major event or sport and thinks, oh, God, that looks fun. I want to be that. Well, it takes a decade or more of preparation to get there.
Yeah, definitely. That's very insightful. Very good answer. We would love to know when you look at the grid today, is there a driver who resonates with you the most? Does any driver contain similar traits to yourself? I'm not sure if this is anything you've ever thought of, but I thought it would be really interesting.
Yeah, well, it's easier for me to answer. When I grew up, I really admired the way Alain Prost was driving. He seemed very smooth. Seemed quite tactical. I didn't fully appreciate because I didn't know enough about the sport back then that in the early phase of Alain's career, he had an advantage by being smaller and lighter. And I don't know exactly the date when the driver's weight became an included part of the car, but I think it was early 90s. Maybe you can check that and update,
Yeah.
or one of you can check on your phone while we're talking. When did the driver's weight become an included part? But he certainly had a advantage early on in his career by being light, like a jockey, over the heavier drivers. And in simple terms, in Formula One, 10 kilograms is about zero point 0.3 of a second per lap.
Yeah.
So if you're 70 kilos and you've got the same talent as the guy that's 80, then you're zero point 0.3 quicker. It's so accurate on the lap. So he certainly achieved a lot when he had that advantage, but then when that was taken away, he was still, of course, an exceptional driver. So
Yeah.
I always admired his very smooth style. Um, of the drivers that are out there on the grid today, it's a very good question of which I don't have an answer because I don't really look at them and go, oh, I see myself. Every generation should be better. So all of these guys should be better than I was in my generation. If they're not, then they're probably not going to be winning Grand Prix. Um, yeah, it's it's a bit more tricky, I think, to see the different driving styles now within the context of the cars. The big cars,
Mm.
they're heavier. They don't lend themselves to, the sort of Jules Villeneuve sliding and drifting. I think they were in cross-ply tires back then
Yep.
rather than radials. So I think they all look like they're driving very nicely. Of course, you can sometimes see the body language of the car. You can really sense it's on the edge. And no surprise that the guys that are getting pole positions are usually the ones that are taking more out of the tires because they all have the same tires. But yeah, sorry, a long answer not to give you an answer. I don't really look at it in that sense.
Yeah.
I just want to be impressed. I want to see somebody do something that makes me go, wow. And
Yeah.
that's the same as when I was a kid. I wanted to see the drivers, when Senna went out to do a qualifying lap, you were ready for something magical to happen. And 9 times out of 10, it did. That's the thing that I've always found fascinating. The guys that are able to take the limit from the car. It's a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, wow, that's really interesting. Hey,
Yeah.
yeah,
Everything in this interview,
yeah,
amazing.
unreal.
I've loved, yeah,
we,
everything about it.
it's been incredible. But listen, there is a bigger event happening very soon. Obviously, David, you have a live tour coming up around Australia with none other than your former teammate, Mika Hakkinen. You guys were an absolute force for McLaren, the only team that was successfully able to challenge and beat the Ferraris in the early 2000s. What can fans expect to see at the show, whether that be stories off the track or anything that people may not know, like behind closed doors? Is there anything that any hints you can give us, or
Yeah, we're super excited. We'll be there
we
too.
will be
So,
there?
like, tell us
Yeah,
what can we expect to see?
Well, it's exactly that, actually. It's a, let's say, a more candid discussion, sharing of opinions and views, not only from our historical times together, but what made it quite relevant is the fact that Mika and I were teammates for 7 years. He was 8 years at McLaren. I was nine years at McLaren. So in the context of Oscar and Lando battling for the championship last year, then in many ways, when I mentioned earlier about history repeating itself, it was the same scenario there, where there's certain team intervention and it works for one driver, it doesn't work for another. Sometimes it worked for Mika, sometimes it worked for me. So we have that insight and that knowledge, and of course the team is a very different team in terms of the people that are involved, but there's still some guys there within the team that Mika and I worked with. So there's still a fingerprint of what McLaren was and
yep,
what McLaren is today. They're a high performing team that have done exceptionally well. And yeah, just sharing, let's say, some more of the behind the scenes life and lifestyle of what it is and to be a Formula One driver. And Mika's still involved with Formula One as an ambassador. I'm still involved in Formula One through television and as an ambassador as well. So we're still there. We're still getting those insights and really sharing it with the fans. Ultimately, we are fans. We just happen to have been Grand Prix drivers.
Yeah, wow. Sounds like an incredible night. We definitely need to look into it because I
yes,
want to be there.
for sure.
I'm
That
sure you
that sounds
do.
amazing.
Yeah.
Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard.
In
Hello,
Perth.
hello.
Closing out this interview, however, what do you hope people remember the most about your career? What do you want to be remembered for?
Well, that's a great question, of which it never crosses my mind to be remembered for anything other than when I'm doing my work today. I believe that I should turn up on time, do what's expected of me, and then go about the rest of my day. I just want to not think about that person that was a Grand Prix driver. The history books are what they are, and if anyone's interested in that era, you can Google the hell out of it. Other search engines are available, so it's all there for people that want to see that. And there'll be varying opinions, of course, as we all have. We all have different opinions on things, but I'm a great believer in what is the ultimate gauge in Formula One. Well, it's two things: it's a stopwatch and it's a checkered flag. those two things don't lie. A stopwatch doesn't have an opinion, and a checker flag, assuming the person who waves it, waving it at the right time. Because you could say, I think it was 84 when the checkered flag came out early in Monaco, when Senna in a Tolman was catching Alain Prost in a McLaren, and some people said that they should have wove the checkered flag a lap later, and then Senna would have got his first victory. So I say that because sometimes the checkered flag can come out earlier than the full distance.
Yeah.
But I got my chance, and the record books showed the results. I wasn't the best, I wasn't the worst, but I did, a few victories, and I did my time in Formula One. What I would say is you don't stay 9 seasons at McLaren under Ron Dennis if you're not adding value. So I'm proud of that, let's say, that era of my career. And for the rest, I'm not living in the past. I'm living right now. You guys very politely reached out looking to have a conversation, and I responded to that. There's a lot of others do, but I don't have the time any more than you have the time to do everything that everyone would like me to do. So it's about selecting something that resonates with you, that makes you go, yeah, I'll do that. And that's how I live my life today. And, I'm involved in different businesses. I'm a father to a young racer. I'm engaged to get married. There's a lot of other things going on in life as the clock is ticking. I'm 54, so I'm closer to the end of my life than I am the beginning of my life. Boo-hoo for me. But a lot of people get to 54. So, I'm thankful for this journey, and excited for the future. So I'm more about what I can do in the future than what I've done in the past. And I don't have this big motivation to leave some kind of public legacy or something like that. I know that is important to some, and they visualize a monument, and they visualize how they'll be celebrated beyond their life, and if they've done something remarkable, they should. We celebrate the great literature and the great music of those that have been here hundreds of years ago, because it was amazing and it's fantastic. And I'm not sure whether sports will have the same longevity, whether we'll be talking about Ronaldo and Schumacher and Senna in a couple of hundred years. For whatever racing is in a couple of hundred years, yes, there'll still be a recognized, let's say, name, quite rightly, because of their achievement. I think sport is more about the here and now than about 100 years past.
Oh, that is awesome, David. You couldn't have said that any better.
Yeah, so good.
Beautiful
Everything
advice.
about this.
It's been an absolute privilege. Oh, sorry. Before we end it, David, sorry, mate. We have a fun fact.
We do.
One each to share with you. I'll let Brianna go first while I find this specific photo.
All right, you do that.
Yes.
So my fun fact is that you and I, we actually share the same birthday, 27th of March. That's coming up this month.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just a little fun fact, like what are the chances?
Okay. Well, that's a good fun fact. Yeah. Well, happy birthday when it comes.
Yes,
your birthday is an age that, you can celebrate your age at your birthday. My next birthday, I'll be 55, or as I like to look at it, 15 years from 70. So it really focuses your mind on getting on and making every day count.
Very true. All right, so back at the 2022 Australian Grand Prix, David, you were just walking through the paddock, and I said to my dad, I said, is that who I think it is? And it was none other than yourself, and we managed to get a photo. I'm not too sure if you can remember, but it's probably, hang on a sec, give me 2 seconds. There we go. I don't know if you can see, that is myself, my dad, and then there's you on the end there.
Yeah, I can.
That's my dad, that's me there on the end.
We'll pop it up on the
We'll pop it up on the screen for the YouTube viewers. But yeah, what a crazy moment, and how the world works.
And now you're here.
Here we are. It's just unbelievable. We cannot thank you enough, David. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Like we said, our first ever guest, and wow.
Yeah, what a moment. What an interview. We hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, as much as we have, because it's been unreal. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Where are you guys actually based? So you can maybe come along to one of the shows that Mika and I are doing.
So we're in Perth.
Okay. Well, why don't you reach out to and she's got your details already, but we'll get you along to the show if you're in Perth at that time, because I know we're going to be up there early March, and we can meet in person, and I'll introduce you to Mika.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
We would love to. That would be
insane.
amazing.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yes, please. We were just saying how much we wanted to go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I look forward to seeing you there.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you, David. See you later.
ya.
All the best.
Thank
Bye-bye
you.
now.
See ya.
Bye.
Wow. First guest done. How was that, everybody? Wow.
That was
unreal.
Good. That was crazy. That is.
He's definitely offline. Yeah.
Oh,
no, he's gone.
He's gone.
Oh my gosh. All right, guys. Well, that was our first guest episode. And if you're wanting more, we break down our Melbourne predictions this week. So keep an eye out, because F1 is officially back. And what a way to bring it back to David Coulthard. Seriously.
That was awesome.
But F1's back this week. So stay tuned. We've got really 2 big, exciting episodes dropping after this, as if this wasn't big enough.
No, exactly. So,
but yes, keep your eyes peeled. We've got lots coming. And wow, that was just unreal.
We're kicking off on a high, and the season hasn't even begun yet.
It hasn't. And when this comes out, we would have already aired another cool app. So go check that out if you want to see Anthony Davidson.
All right. Well, I think that does us here. David Coulthard on the podcast. What an honor.
Amazing.
And we will see you very shortly for our very special episode.
We can't say anything.
And then our predictions as per, ladies and gentlemen. So strap in and hold on, because there's going to be a lot more covered.
Yay. All right. Take care. See ya. If you enjoyed that episode,
make sure to leave a like, comment, and follow for more.